I've got my Sapphire all dopped up with a little bit of super glue, and I also put some wax on it as sort of a two-part security system. The super glue helps to just keep it in place while I add the wax and adds a little bit of security. And since it's a small stone, I'm going to try this cut for small sapphire designed by Wayne Barnett from the US Faceter Guild newsletter in 2016. It should go pretty quick. It's only 33 facets, which is why I'm doing it on this one, because I've had a couple of small sapphires fail already, and I don't really want to put in the time for 50 or 60 facets just to have it fall off. So we'll get it started with bringing these to a center point with a 600 lap all set up. And here we go. I'm going to try cutting on the 600 just because it's so small. This is a 600 new bond lap, which a lot of people say will cut like a 1200 grit once it's broken in, and this came to me used, so it may be a little too slow for what I need in terms of a 600 grit disc, and I may have to go down to my next coarser disc, which is I think a 360. If this was a small stone of another type that was a little softer, I think this would be definitely the way to go, because it would grind a lot faster, but since this is a hardness of 9 is what sapphires are, it may be a little slower. This is the first cut I'm doing with this lap, or actually the first cut I'm doing on the machine since having it sort of rebalanced at the club workshop. There was a slight misalignment of the lily pad pavilion here with the lap itself, and you can see if I let it go and it starts pulling it out towards the far end of the disc, that means that it's still making contact with it, and you can also hear that it's still grinding away. This is a Raytech Shaw model faceter machine with a handpiece design, which means that the gem is on a just handpiece that I can lift off and look at and rotate as much as I want, as opposed to a mast machine where all of your angles and everything and your dop is stuck to a mast, which is a little more of a constricting position, although those have a reputation for being more accurate and repeatable than the Raytech Shaws in terms of getting the angles that you want as you come back to them and from multiple polishes, and also setting the angles. Many of them have digital gauges or needle gauges for pressure and how much, as you approach the angle that you need to for your stone, the dial will indicate that you're getting close, and so you know to use less pressure or more pressure. Whereas this, it's all by feel and sound. I do have a couple of indications in addition to the sound, I have a couple indications of how far I have to go. I can just look at the stone, obviously. That's the best way to do it probably. But I have little adjustable feet on the bottom here for tilting it left and right, or this one in the middle here. If you raise it or lower it, it'll tilt the mast or the handpiece this way. And when I have this set on here, I can look down underneath that little Teflon part and see if it's resting on the surface of the lily pad. And if it is, then I know that I'm at the height that I wanted to get to, but if there's a gap between it, then I still have a ways to go. And right now there's a little bit of a gap still. I'm keeping the pressure as even as I can in the middle of the mast where my next, or whatever that finger is, middle finger is right now. If I were to have the pressure on this side of the little height adjustment, Teflon piece, then I would be putting too much pressure and starting to tilt it forward. Small stones like this, a little bit of hand pressure either side of the mast can affect, actually even with large stones, hand pressure differential from the left or right of the handpiece can affect the polish, because that transfers to sort of torque rotation on the gemstone as it's contacting the lap in the center. So as I'm polishing, you can see there's kind of a protractor arc on the handpiece here, and right now it's set to 38 degrees, which this is just a tightening knob that you loosen to adjust the angle, and then you tighten it back up, and it's just a tension that holds it in place. And then on the back here is the index gear, which this is a 96 index gear. It's in the shadows, but 96 is, or 90 is there, and then there's a little button at 96. So right now I'm at 48, which is obviously opposite of 96 and halfway there. The two facets I've been working on are on the top and bottom here now. You can see, there's still a little bit of rough area between them, maybe a millimeter or so, that I have to bring together to a point before I can move on to the other stages. The stone is a little bit oblong, and so maybe this would have been better as an oval cut. So now we're staying in place, which suggests that I've reached about as far down as I can go with the current height it's set to on this stage. So I'll go back to 96, and you can see that better now that I'm set at 96, which is 90 is there, 6 is there. And just to press this lever, and you can rotate this to whatever angle you want, and it locks down in place. I've moved on to one of the other angles, and I've also increased the speed of the lap to try to speed up cutting a little bit. It's a fine balance between going too fast, which can cause heating of the stone, especially sapphires I think are prone to it, which can, loosen the wax or the super glue. Certainly water will help mitigate that, and it's still cool to the touch. Yeah, I think I gotta switch it up. And, I'm going the wrong way on there. So tighten that. And before I switch to a different lap, I want to dry this one off, so I'll speed it up and wait for it to dry out a bit so it'll turn whiter. Hello.
Hello, kittens.
Now that it's dry, I can swap out. And now we'll go to a 360 disc. The 360 lap is a little thicker than the 600 mesh lap was, and so I raised up the platform by rotating this little ring down here, which raises it up and lowers it. And I'm just going to go until I start to make contact. I can hear that, so just making contact there. Start the machine. Raise it up a little bit. And my table is tilted slightly that way, so it goes that way with vibration. Start some water. And for the most part here, I'm starting off almost holding the handpiece up away a little bit, just so I don't put too much pressure on there because it's such a small stone. And then as it grinds away, slowly letting just the handpiece pressure push the stone into the lap. And then increasing pressure as it starts to grind away. There we go. All right, that went a lot faster. And now we have a faceted pavilion that I'll just have to go through and polish, or go back to 600 and go around, and then go up to probably just polishing after that. Or no, I go to 1200 after that. And yeah, that was a much better idea. And that way it saves my 600 lap from wearing out too fast. So I'll do the same thing, dry this out, and switch back. Or should I pre-form now? No, since I'm at the right angle, I think I'll go back and finish the pavilion first. I've got a couple facets polished now. I actually polished the one that's blinking right now, but it's still kind of frosty. But that one there and to the right are both polished. Here we are with the stone polished to 600 grit. And what I found interesting was that a couple facets on this side here are very clear, and the other side is also fairly clear and clean. And then up on here and on the opposite side, it's still fairly frosted after having the same grit polished over the entire thing. And so I'm wondering if there's some sort of directionality to polishing sapphire, which I know if it's silky, there can be, and it can peel in different directions and stuff, but this is fairly clear, although as I polish into it, there are a few bubbles that I'm seeing on the inside. I don't know if we can focus this close. So I think you can see there's some bubbles under the surface there that will probably mess with the play of light and whatnot on the inside, but I'll keep going with this gem anyway, just for fun. It's practice. And I guess I gotta go to my 1200 grit now and keep going from there. My 1200 grit disc is actually just a thin topper that I broke in with an agate a little bit ago, so it's a little smoother than it was originally. And I have a flat master lap, cast plastic that'll go on there like that. And because this is a topper, you have to have it centered perfectly, and so the little knob that goes on top, it has two sides. One is a concave, and this has a little uplift there, so that side goes down in order to center that blade. And because this is a multiple disc, I'm way too low with my handpiece, so I have to raise the platform up quite a bit. There we go. So now we're spinning freely, and I'll bring it down just until we're touching the lap. Ooh. This, I didn't break it, I may not have broken it in quite well enough, so this may be a little too coarse. But then again, this is sapphire, so it will be hard and a little more resistant. But we'll see. And I gotta refill my water again. I don't know how long it'll last, but I'm using distilled water for the stones because we have hard water here. And I'm worried that it's kicking the disc up into the stone a little bit, which can cause more pressure on the stone and more likely to break off. And also an uneven polish. But I think I'll just skip this step for now and go straight to polish and see how that turns out, because I'm not sure that this is actually polishing any better than the 600 was. Well, I ended up going ahead with just finishing them all with the 1200 grit, just because this is sapphire, so I can use that to knock down some of the excess diamond on the 1200 lap and get it primed for next time. And now that we're past 1200, it's time to polish. Pretty much everything can be polished with a nice flat tin disc and 50,000 grit diamond powder, which I'll put a little bit on. Just there are a couple of burrs on this tin disc, which I'm hoping doesn't cause too much of a problem. There we go. We'll see what that does. It's not a lot. You don't need a lot. Maybe you need more than that. But all I'm going to do is have a very slow spin. And a very slow drip after we get it a little bit wet here. Where maybe once every few seconds. Just enough to keep the surface wet without pushing everything off to the side. And create a little bit of a slurry of diamond. And I'm just going to make contact. And I can feel a tick, so I'm going to move off of that spot. And I'm polishing just the tip of it right now, so I need to bring it down into a little more contact. I think there's a couple of larger scratches on there from the 1200 grit disc. So put a little more diamond powder down. I think that almost did it. Yeah, I think that's working better. So I'll go back, polish up this first facet again. Well, it happened. I guess I got a little too greedy with the polishing and the stone fell off. And here we are. You can see, I think the left side there was polished. We were about halfway done with polishing the crown. One of these facets just wasn't polishing and I forced it a little too much. I re-dopped the stone and tried to find as close as I could to where the original one of the indexes was, to one of the faces, by putting it on the lap and running it back and forth while it was dry and seeing where it marked up. It's definitely off-center a little bit still, and so I think because I do have a little bit of room, I'm going to just go through and run it on the 1200 lap and see if I can't just find a new center point without too much trouble. This facet is now about half scuffed up by the 1200 lap. It was polished before. The right side is still pretty clear. So once that gets totally frosted, I'll just keep going and go to the next one. Well, I guess I might as well try to polish the girdle. And since this is such a aggressive lap right now, I figure I'll just stick with 1200 and give that a shot. Actually, I think I'll come up and then bring it back down slowly. that's that.